My name's Daniel Boney. I've got I'm at the Aboriginal Tent Embassy. I forgot last time I was here, I forgot to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people and the descendants of those people, so forgive me for that. I have an elder gentleman beside me, Uncle Dennis Walker, Auntie Maureen Davis from Ewing country, and another brother from Aranda, Chris Tomlins. We're going to touch base on sovereignty for a minute, and then we're going to get into some of the first contact, when white man first came to us, and how long it took to get from the east coast into the desert, or from the west coast. It was a long journey to get there, but it affects all us today, and how we're dealing with it today. Chris has got that answer. So I'm going to start off with Uncle Dennis. Your thoughts on everything like again?
Yeah.
Give it to these fellas and then.
Yes, in regards to the whole movement on sovereignty, was started back in 1972, and I was part of that class of 72. And that there is a photograph of the class of 72, and I've included that in my self-defence package, which explains how at Crown Law it is our sovereignty, our domain and our jurisdiction. That's my ASIO photograph, but within this self-defence package that you can get on the Sovereign Tribal Origin Peoples site, STOP, on Facebook, you can download that and have a good look at it. But it clearly states within that self-defence package how there are three ultra vires, which means it doesn't lawfully follow the Act of Settlement of 1701, and those 3 points are, they were secret. The Parliament had to know about the Crown taking sovereignty outside of the UK. The second one is the fact that he had to get consent, but he didn't get any consent, and he didn't even try to get consent because he was putting in all sorts of diseases to depopulate us. However, and the third one is that it was signed off by the Lords of Admiralty. So there's three unlawful acts just in the secret instructions to Cook. Now in 1872 and 1875 and 1883, Queen Victoria fought very hard to get the legislations through that gave us our sovereignty, our domain and our jurisdiction. And it's clearly that at Crown Law right now. In terms of the sovereignty issue, the Crown does, at their own law, recognise our sovereignty. And the sovereignty is about our tribes. That there is the tribal map. So I'll hand it over to...
Now, me and you were talking the other day about how you started off in your movement from Queensland. You helped start off with a lot of organisations over here.
Yeah, a lot of the survival organisations, yeah. The legal, housing, health, preschools. Abscol, we used to wash cars to get Aboriginal scholarships at uni. And they were a great help during those days back in 72. The Abscol movement provided a lot of student support, but we don't have those Abscols anymore because we've now got Ab Study.
So we all come under that.
Yep, but the students gave us a lot of support back in the day.
And your time as being Staunch Blackfellow, I heard you started off with a couple of organisations to help the prisoners out.
Yeah, we had an incorporated organisations inside of the Bogger Road prison called IPCHAC, Incarcerated People's Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation. And we're able to do a lot of cultural work in the prisons. We've also toured Noonuccal Kunjeel. My children have danced through all the prisons in Queensland, all the prisons in New South Wales and all the prisons in Victoria.
So besides your political campaigns, you're on dead set activism.
Yeah, well mainly I'm concentrating on the law of the matter at the moment, and at Crown law, it is definitely our sovereignty and our domain. And I've won in 6 jurisdictions so far: Queensland, New South Wales, here in the ACT, South Australia, Tasmania, and Northern Territory with that self-defence package. So please use it if you are a sovereign tribal origin person or a treaty member.
And nothing else you need to say at the moment. I'll get back to you when we need to. Okay. I've got Aunt Maureen Davis who's with us. She's one of the first contact people that, on the south coast of northern New South Wales. So Aunt would tell me the story that she told me today and how that came about.
Yes, my name is Maureen Davis. I am a family of, I connect to the Yuin of the southeast coast. My family's victims of the movement that impacted on several tribes of the local area following the time of 1770 and Cook Landing, where many tribes were displaced. They were picked up and moved, or murdered, massacred, slaughtered, and so forth. In relation to that, several families were removed, placed out around the Yass, down around Goulburn, until we get down to the south coast. My families were moved from the Darug peoples, the Darug tribe, of the Gandangara tribe, and we were down and placed down on the southeast coast in places of, example of Molliga Lake.
Then you touched base there this afternoon about how the white Europeans sort of took over
Yeah.
the families.
Yeah. In the area of location of Maruya, there were four property owners who moved in, and that was the Francis Flanagan, Auden and O'Brien. I'm not too sure of the other one. Our families were taken and placed on their properties. We worked for those peoples on their cattle stations and farms. And with that came the men of our people then escorted and led those farmers up through areas such as Runnymede. The men of that local area never returned back to their local areas of abode, such as the Walbunja people, and to their wives, who I refer to as Nimble, Jenny Nimble of Browley. Her husband never returned. She was then married. Later on down the track, she was then married. Organised marriage was through the wife of the old chief Thurama to be married to a convict. And that convict was Piety, who done 14 years deportation to Australia for stealing a pocket watch.
Thank you, my aunties. I'll get back to you shortly. I got my brother Chris Tomlins. He's around the man.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Pultari. Like Dennis said, Chris Tomlins is a birth certificate name. But my grandmothers, on both sides, my mother's side and my father's side, were the first to make contact with Europeans or white Australians at that time. And my mother, both my mother and father, at the age of 8 years old, got taken away and taken into missions. And it's a funny story about it because when my mother first got shipped and taken away and put on a train, she seen these nuns, and in them days the nuns used to have the flying hat sort of thing. And the first time she seen a nun, she thought that was the Labrina woman, because in my grandmother's, my old-time stories, they talk about the Labrina woman coming to steal the little kids away. And in reality, it did happen. And the same with my father. And I grew up in Alice Springs. I was born in 1959. I grew up in Alice Springs in Central Australia. And I grew up in a suburb called the East Side. And the East Side was where the half-caste kids lived. And there was also the Gap, where the three-quarter caste kids lived. And there's also the Railway, where the quarter caste lived. And all the full-bloods lived out of town. And that's what we grew up feeling like it was normal. It was called the simulation days. And this brought about a lot of trauma with the Aboriginal people, and I guess at the same time, this trauma is also affecting mainstream white Australians as well. And I feel that through what happened with my past and Sister Girl's past and everyone's past, you know, this whole country is absolutely traumatized. Everybody walks with trauma. And it's the calling there, and I speak about, is for this month coming up in April, we call it a healing day. Not Anzac Day, not Gallipoli Day. We call it first contact between black and white Australians when Captain Cook jumped off the boat and musket gunned the first blackfellow he's seen in his sight, which proves that Australia wasn't peacefully settled. We're going to talk about that. We want white Australians to come here, that lived here, that got stories from their fathers, their grandmothers, their grannies, and sit down and share the stories around the fires so we can fix ourselves, heal ourselves, and plan a future. We're all here now, and we've got to think about a future for our kids and grandchildren. And through our suffering and our pain, we can come together and build a really good future for ourselves.
That's true.
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. Anything you would like to add to that, academics?
Yeah, in terms of the sovereignty aspect, I've just shown you by way of the self-defence package that you can look up on the Sovereign Tribal Aborigine Peoples Stop Facebook site and see how at Crown Law it is our domain, our sovereignty and our jurisdiction. In terms of how to settle these matters, I'm doing treaty with various individuals and corporations, and the way I do that is to say that we need a controlling interest on every corporation on our country. Otherwise, that's where all the pathological demonising goes on within those corporations. And we need to have a controlling say in those corporations to get back to the custodial laws so that we can protect our people and country. What I'm doing with treaty business is treating in, as I said before, corporations at 51% controlling interest and individuals at 10% of their first fruits, which is their tithing. Yep, but that's about treaty, just so people know about how to deal with corporations.
You can find that on his webpage if you'd like to have a look. Yeah. And I've got something else to say as well. This is where we've been sitting around the fire.
With all the hardship that we had been confronted, we also shared our foods with Captain Cook, who sailed up the east coast along the Indian Ocean, heading towards Botany Bay. He stopped off at Churros, where my families fed him mussels. They also put water, fresh water, drinking water, on their ship. They then sailed onto the gateway at Bateman's Bay, then proceeded on their travel up to Botany Bay. And in order of that, the continuation of was the Aboriginal people and their caring and sharing of the convicts, the early settlers, colonisation. We are carers and sharers. We do have concern of how things have gone, where they've gone to, and how it's got lost in the system. And it needs to be corrected with truth.
Brother, you have
That's it. Just go finish off.
like, thank you very much for this, but like it's all about, we went through most of all the hardships. Now it's about reconnecting with each other, especially us black mob. You know, We are the biggest mob, but the hindrance. So be black and be strong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'm here at the Aboriginal Embassy. We were talking when the last subject was first contact, and Brother Chris was talking about how he was with in the desert, but I would like to talk to these people about how their first contact was before we got to the desert, and those atrocities that happened in between. I got my brother Alan Coe.
My name's Alan Coe. I'm a graduate to your man. We're talking about first contact. What we they were doing. Lieutenant Cook came. They came in and there was men who went down to the beach, right, and they were fired upon. And they took shields and off the beach articles. Then after they come back, after Philip came, there was contact with people. There was Pemulwuy there, right, and Pemulwuy was battled with them, and he was a guerrilla fighter, and so he was giving them hell all over the place. Hawkesbury River, around Botany, down the Georges River, and all those places. And then not only that, there was they had the Battle of Parramatta.
The first resistance.
Yeah, the first resistance. And the thing about the Battle of Parramatta was that the Eora people were joined by Wingadine from the Wiradjuri people, and Wingadine and Pemulwuy fought the Battle of Parramatta, and they resisted against colonialists, and as the colonials went in further and further, and Wingadine fought the Battle of the Bathurst against the colonials. And ever since that, and over the years,
He went to Georgia.
yeah, 30 odd years, and yet people talk about Blacks and Lawson and Wentworth across the Blue Mountain. Well, it took Blacks and Lawson and Wentworth 28 years to get across the Blue Mountain because of the resistance that was going on from the Wiradjuri people and the Eora people. So, you know, it wasn't, as history says, they just came in and done. But also be mindful that in that process of going inland, there were massacres, there were poisoning of the water holes, there were children being buried up to their necks with their heads booted off. And so these atrocities happened over and over and over, time and time and again. And women and children were also pushed over.
And we're not allowed to speak about it.
That's right, you know, and those things happen. And this is the history that people don't talk about, the history that people disregard. So in those contacts, these are things that happen all over the country. You know, Gabe and his brothers away and other people around. So, you know, it wasn't a walk up, walk in, you know, take things out. There was battles, there was 100 years war. So these are the
Now
things.
it's turned into 227.
That's right, now it's 230 years. And yet these things continue. They had the Royal Inquiry into Deaths and Customs. Cost millions and millions of dollars. That Royal Inquiry into the Stolen Generation cost millions and millions of dollars. Yet we live in a time, modern day, these things are still happening. Aboriginal people are still dying in jail. Children are still being taken. And we're still talking about recognising our rights and acknowledging our sovereignty. And yet the government runs around pushing their little stories, trying to take away our sovereignty. We need to be mindful that our people and our children and our children's children and our children's 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 children need a future. It is time that the white man recognise the things wrong, recognise the things done wrong.
We've seen the marches in Melbourne there.
Yes,
That was great, man. That was good. So we got much support.
it does.
They don't support now.
That's right. We've been getting tremendous support. The last one in Melbourne was Australia Day weekend. There's 50,000 people there. You know? And yet the media, they won't show that.
Only showed it once.
Yeah, that's right. And in the last 3 years, I live in Lake Edwards now. In the last 3 years, I've been to probably 20 marches. I think they've had about 30 something. And yet we don't see nothing on the news. They don't talk about those things. And this is because we don't want recognition. We need a treaty. We need acknowledgement of things done wrong. We need a healing for our children, for our elders, for our people. And that is why we want sovereignty. We want acknowledgement of that. And we need to sit at the table and talk about treaty with all our nations. We're not one nation. Really? Hey, we're not one nation, are we?
No.
Every nation, we're 600 plus, aren't we? And so we need to sit at the table.
You're at the Campfire in Melbourne.
That's right, we're at the Campfire in Melbourne.
So there's many of the campfires kicking around this day.
All about the country.
If you get a chance, you go to those.
Yeah, if you get a chance to come support us, support us. Don't listen to the government because they're lying. They've been lying ever since they've been here, actually.
Now, I've got out Noreen Davis. Your input on those atrocities through the women's.
Yeah, in relation to the women and those atrocities, the women were raped, genocided, and with that, as again earlier I spoke about how there were arranged marriages were made with convicts, and in relation to those arranged marriages to the convicts, that is where we lost our lands, because the man, the Aboriginal man and Aboriginal woman of tribes, we have equal status, and they never realised that. When I say they, I'm talking about the European, the people who moved in, or
So was that with the churches, a lot of them?
churches.
They had a lot to do with it, didn't they?
The churches came in after the colonial days of settlement, early days of settlement. They came in with missionaries. Down on the east coast, the first churches was the Wesleyan practice. And when the Wesleyan practice came in there, our families were forced to take on their religion. Our religion, our practice,
That was it.
culture
There was
was
a lot of them. A lot of them was done to a lot of us, eh?
exactly.
Brothers,
Yes.
And even,
Anglican put on me.
and even with their beliefs, they didn't even take notice of what their words said. They changed the story to suit themselves.
They did. They did.
We'll come back to you. Brother Chris, your point of view on how they treated you mob in the desert.
Well, it's no different from no different from mob in the East Coast, First Nations. It's no different. A bit more up to speed and they went about it. But they learnt a lot. By the time they got to us, they were pretty good at it. Had to go about their business. But apart from all that, there was a war that broke out between black and whites in those days. And this war is still happening today. This is what the frontier, the handshake on the 25th, this is what the frontier is all about. It's about putting an end to this war and reconciling with each other. Black and white coming together and healing and saying, we've got to put an end to this. This suffering that's going on has got to stop. And the only way it can stop, white Australians, mainstream Australians, get up and fix their government. It's their government that's at fault, not them. They've got to fix their government.
They've got most of the vote anyway, the black people. We got no vote. And they have all that.
They have to support us, and therefore you must vote no. Recognition in the Constitution, and the government's running around telling lies saying 80% of our people support recognition. That's a lie. It's 20% support. They're people who are paid by government. Our people do not want recognition. We need treaty.
That's them sit down fella, man.
Yep. Down money, that's right.
I think recognition is it's a crime in itself because I don't think that white Australians have the right to grant black Australians rights. No. They don't have that authority to grant,
don't have that
grant a race of black fellas, a race of people that, hello, we're going to give you rights. Who are they to give us rights? Where did the supremacy come from?
That's right.
For white Australians to say, okay, we're going to give you black Australians rights now. Who are they to give us rights? This is our country. This is where we belong to. Where did their rights come from?
It's like me walking to one of you fellow country and then standing over.
Take it over.
So you're welcome, isn't it? There's some resistance there somewhere, isn't there? So that's part of being black.
And even I was thinking about when Auntie Maureen was talking about when white men come and took Aboriginal women. Right? Even as recently as Lang Hancock, the big mining magnate in West Australia, on his mining sites, right, he had a caravan set up and he used to take Aboriginal women into those caravans, right, and do his thing with them. And I don't know whether you've probably seen Gina Reinhardt's half-sister on TV not long ago. And they were talking to her and they asked her what do Gina's kids call her. And she said, they call me Auntie. What do you think they call me? And word has it there are more half-sisters and brothers around that came from Hancock Lloyd. That's right. They
You
didn't
wouldn't
care.
be the only one.
That's right. That's exactly right. So these are things that as recently as that have happened. And out throughout history we know about children being abused. And our children as well as your children. These things still go on. People need to be held accountable. People need to be taken to court and charged. Right? They're even starting to talk about now about charging Alan Jones. Another man who gets on the news and runs people down and tells people how to live.
So, thank you, my brothers and sisters.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother.
Stay black, stay strong, you fellas.
Yeah, stay black, stay strong.
Thank you very much, great.
Thank you, brother.
Embassy time.
Turn that
Yeah,
off.
I'm turning it down.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'm turning it down. I ain't gonna wait to hear. I don't
Come on then,
There it is down.
Okay.
I'm this man nothing to know.
All right.
So when you're ready, brother,
You ready?
this is important to all of us, okay?
Yeah.
So tell me when we're ready, Joe.